All right. Hello, everybody, yet again for another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast / live stream here on YouTube. It means it's Wednesday night, time for one of my favorite things to do, which is help give you some helpful advice, hopefully, and also to answer your questions in the second half of today's episode. So today's episode, we're continuing along with the topic of why is it so hard to see significant changes in one's physique. The past couple of episodes, we've been discussing this because the way our fitness culture kind of positions it is that exercise is such an effective and reliable way to augment and change the physical appearance of the body. But when you get out into the real world, it's anything but the case. In fact, having a significant amount of change in body fat levels and musculature is actually quite rare, but of course it does happen. So the question we're addressing in these series of episodes is why? Like, why is it only 1%, and what are they doing differently? In the past episode, I talked about how a lot of folks who are successful in making a transformation are implementing a multi-influential approach. It means they've got a lot of irons in the fire. They're not relying on just cutting back carbs or lifting more weight or something. They've got a lot of different influences that are in play. And that goes into today's topic, which is how much of being able to build the body you want just comes down to luck. Because I know we've all thought this, like we're working so hard, making the sacrifices, we're doing things right. And then your friend or your coworker or someone else in the gym, they seemingly get a lot better results with a fraction of the effort. And the only thing we can think of is it's got to be genetics, or it's got to be luck to some degree. There's definitely not always a correlation between hard work and results, because some of the most hardworking people in the gym are also the ones who are struggling the most to get results. So why is this the case? Well, to a degree, it is very much about luck. And I know that's going to ruffle a few feathers because especially for those who are somewhat new in the industry, they'll say, oh no, it's because I'm working very hard, or I'm working smarter, and I've got this special formula, and I've learned what to do best, and all this sort of thing. We don't like to recognize that we have just lucky breaks in life. There was a study in sociology, I remember years ago reading about this, where they took two groups of people and they had them play Monopoly or some similar board game. And one or two of the people who were playing the game in a group, they gave them a massive advantage, like much more money. They started them off with hotels. They started them off with extra characters on the board, whatever the case may be. They gave them huge advantages. And unsurprisingly, the people who had the biggest advantages also more often than not won. But when they asked those individuals, well, why did you win? They almost all universally said, well, it's because I'm a better player, because I've got better skills, because I played smarter, because I was able to take this risk and stuff. Almost nobody credited the fact of, dude, you gave me like twice as much money to start off in 3 hotels from the other guy. So we humans don't like to recognize that we do have lucky breaks in life, but we downplay their importance. Meanwhile, we upplay choices and the hardest decisions that we've made and the effort that we have put in a way to kind of bolster up our ego. But the reality is a lot of this really does come down to just luck. It really does. Now, I would have in the past, if you had asked me, Matt, why do you have such an ability to stay lean and thin, even though your diet's pretty, loose and carefree? I'd say, oh, it's because I work my butt off, because I ride my bike a lot, because I build muscle, because of all these things. But now as I'm really understanding more about principle-based fitness and what it really takes to get the results, I would say 90% of this is luck, just dumb luck. And the reason for that is because, as I alluded to in the last episode, is that when we have a given result, whatever it is, right, there's many influences that play with that, many factors, hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of things that are at play. And the fact is, we don't know what they all are. We're not even conscious of most of them. It's very much agreed upon, especially in circles of success and prosperity and fitness. And you've talked to gurus and stuff on stage and stuff, and they're all saying like, it's all subliminal, your subconscious mind, so powerful, the subconscious mind. Well, if that's the case, then what's really in charge of the stuff we're not consciously aware of, which means if you've got influences that are working in your favor, you don't know why or how what they are. And looking back on my history, I can say that the vast majority of things that have helped me get the results that I have, I had no idea where it played back then. No conscious thought whatsoever. Things like I grew up in Vermont and now I live in Colorado, and I have a lot of access to outdoor recreation. I grew up with family and friends that always encouraged me to go outside and play. I didn't have cable TV for most of my young adult life. When I had video games, I only had 2 video games on my Nintendo Entertainment System. I was also raised with parents who stayed together. They weren't divorced. We always had the quintessential family dinner time, right? So we all sat down to the family meal for dinner almost every night. My mother was a great cook. My dad's a whiz at the barbecue. So every meal, it was, you have a balanced meal. If I tried to say, Mom, can I have potato chips for dinner or something? She'd be like, no, you don't have potatoes for dinner. What's wrong with you? Here, eat your vegetables, right? That's what I grew up with. And now I am around people struggling with diet, and they didn't grow up in that supportive environment. They grew up and it's like, okay, I'm a latchkey kid. I come home, and if I want Twinkies for dinner, I can have Twinkies for dinner. And now in their 40s and stuff, and they're like, oh, I just can't stand to eat fruit and vegetables. It just grosses me out kind of thing. I grew up with a lot of outdoor recreation, physical activities. I grew up on skis and biking and hiking. My friends were all very active. I was encouraged to play basketball in school and be active. So basically what I'm saying is a lot of the stuff on how we grow up has a big influence on our current condition. And I grew up in a very positive physical activity, loving, food, healthy kind of environment. And yeah, the dumb luck. Just the luck of the draw. No 2 ways about it. What about genetics too? Like genetics, is it all genetics? Genetics plays a massive role, because I'm always saying you cannot change your body. You can modify it, but you cannot change what you were naturally born with. You can tweak it and modify it, and those tweaks can become big over time, but you can only tweak, you cannot change. So yeah, I've got genetic advantages up the wazoo. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, this role of luck does not diminish the importance of hard work. It does not in any way discredit what I have done as far as efforts and what I've learned and what I've applied and stuff. That stuff is still just as important as before. And I want to make that clear, because luck is huge and it's very important, but it doesn't mean that the hard work part does not invalidate what you've done. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because we all have luck to some degree. We all have the advantages in life, but if we fail to recognize and capitalize on them, then you could have all the luck in the world, but you're not taking advantage of it. So you might as well not have that kind of luck. Want to recognize the things. Like I grew up believing that the real exercise you do is outside. Gyms are what you do in the winter when the weather sucks. Like that's faux exercise. I mean, obviously it's not entirely true. I don't really believe that to this degree, but I kind of grew up with that idea of like, you only go to the gym as a last resort. And that's where your fake exercise is. Running on a treadmill isn't real running. Riding an exercise bike isn't a real bike ride. Going and heading up Smuggler's Notch on your road bike, that's a real bike ride kind of thing. So that mindset is so deep in my subconscious that in my reaction is I'm much more likely to spend 4 hours out mountain biking than I am to go buy a Peloton, because that's where I'm driven. That's where I'm going to get the most results from, because of just what I've subliminally been born with, just out of dumb luck. So recognize the luck that you have. At the same time, give yourself a break, because we all have bad luck as well in some degrees, right? Now, when it comes to building muscle and strength, as I was saying before, a lot of us, our current condition is heavily influenced by what we were growing up around. Now, I did not grow up around anybody who was ever strength training. In fact, like I borrowed a pair of dumbbells from a friend of mine. They're like 10-pound dumbbells, and I was made fun of it. And my friends would come over and see the dumbbells in my room, and they'd be like, "The hell is this?" Like I might as well have had like strawberry shortcake, like mattresses and bed sheets and stuff like this, and be like, this is the stupidest thing in the world. That's what I grew up with. So consequently, I didn't even know the difference between a dumbbell and a barbell until I was nearly 25. And I didn't get into calisthenics until I was in my mid 30s. Now you've got, my friend's kid, Stella, she's doing handstands and walking around on her hands as easily as she's walking on her feet when she's young because she's in gymnastics program and stuff. She has the luck of being exposed to that kind of training at a very young age. So by the time she's 15, she's going to be further ahead of the game than I am now at 42. And that's lucky on her part, but it was unlucky on my part that I was in an environment that actually downright discouraged building strength and muscle for the first half of my life. So naturally, I'm behind the 8 ball on that one. There's nothing really I can do about that. So I recognize that it's a bit of a apples to oranges kind of comparison. Someone who's been practicing their deadlifts since they were 6 years old because their uncle taught them how to deadlift, and they've got a family of weightlifters and stuff. They've got huge advantages for building muscle and strength over someone like me. Recognize that and recognize it for the truth that it is. We're not on a level playing field at all. We have advantages, we have disadvantages. It's not, poor me or I'm the best or anything, but we have to recognize that we're all in different circumstances, for better or for worse. And when we get more honest about that sort of thing, then we can see things how they really are and take better control of it. Exploit your strengths, take advantages of your abilities that you naturally have. If you have a natural inclination to train a certain way, to eat a certain way, to go in a certain direction when you train, listen to that. Chances are there's something there that you should abide by rather than going against it. Like for me, if I was to get a Peloton bike, that would be counterproductive to me in most cases, just because of how I grew up. I was lucky to have the ability to know that when I'm on a bike, you ride fast and you ride far. And that's how it goes about. And a lot of people, they don't have that good fortune. I went and I always love telling the story. I went and hiked up a mountain one time, and on the way down, I was greeted by these two ladies at the bottom. It was a ski resort, and they were sipping wine and stuff. And they asked me where the hell I came from. And I was like, well, I went up to the top of the mountain, like up there, and you see the snow up there. I was skiing that, and it wasn't Everest or something. This wasn't the biggest mountain in the world. And they simply could not believe that I had done that. They were like, no, you must have come around the corner. They thought I was playing a joke on them. They're like, there's no way you came all the way up there. But to me, going up that mountain was nothing because of how I grew up. So I have the fortune of being like, yeah, going hiking all day is no big deal. But for other people, it's a monumental thing to overcome. And that's an advantage and good luck that I have. So hard luck or good luck does exist. A lot of it does come down to genetics. A lot of it does come down to the good fortunes that you are naturally given. Recognize those. Take the next couple of days and just kind of meditate on what are your advantages in the games that you are trying to play in developing your health and fitness. And once you recognize them, exploit the mother living hell out of them. Don't play the card like I used to play, like, oh, I've got this advantage, but I don't want people to think I'm, spoiled or anything, like silver spoon in my mouth. No, if you've got advantages, that's great. It doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you a wimp or lazy or anything like that. Play the field. Use your advantages as much as you can. All right. So that's the end of the regular section. Let's get into our question and answers. People coming in here. How's it going, Michael? Good to see you here. Lewis, how are you doing? All people coming on in. Michael is talking. Michael, if you don't know, by the way, has got a couple books out now. And he talks about how he is 140 pounds. 140 pounds, people. Most people have trouble losing 10 pounds. Michael here has lost 140 pounds and he's kept it off. And that's incredibly rare. We should be asking Michael how he did it, because what he's done is like 1 out of 100, or maybe even 1 out of 1,000 people examples. And he says it's many twists and turns. It's one of those things where when you are going on a journey, especially one that long, losing that much weight and making a big change, you're not going to have a straight shot. There's that idea out there of linear progression, like, okay, every 2 weeks you'll lose 1.5 pounds, or every week or so you should add 5 pounds to the bar or something like that. That's one of those things that sounds great on paper, but it just does not play out in real life. Real life has a lot of events, ups and downs, lefts and rights, all sorts of things going on and happening. So progression's not meant to be linear. It's nice if and when it is, but that's almost never the case. So when you hit your frustrations, when you hit your roadblocks, when you have those moments where things seem to be going backwards a little bit, it's okay. It's part of the process. I think it was a TED talk of someone who was saying, yeah, it was like Michael is like 130 pounds or something like that in 2 years, which is insane. And he's like, here's the graph of my weight loss. And it's just a straight line, from year 1 to year 2. Okay, here's my weight. It looks pretty straight. But when you zoom in on like a 3-week period, it's like all over the place. Like this week I gained 2 pounds, and this week I hit a plateau that lasted for a month, and so on. So that's normal. That's not too bad. But when we take a very short-term mental approach, we oftentimes get too reactive. Like, oh, this has happened this week, or this is what's been happening for the past month. What am I doing wrong? And we just keep making radical changes. It's kind of like Warren Buffett always said about the stock market. The stock market is where the impatient, or what was the phrase? It was something to the degree of like the stock market is a great place where the impatient lose money and the patient gain money. Because that's kind of his strategy, like invest and sit on it. You just kind of make long-term, think long-term. But, someone invests in a stock and 2 days later, it's like, it's down 20%, sell. And he's like, settle down. Well, we have the same reaction sometimes when it comes to weight or building muscle and stuff. Think biannually, every couple of months, at the most, make choices every couple of months, and pay more attention to the nuanced things. Like, I haven't lost any weight, but boy, I can run so much further and I feel a lot better. And all these other things are improving. Hey, improvement is improvement across the board. It was one of those things that you want to look at multiple influences yet again. Hey, Wolfie Dragon. All right. The little lady saying, keep up the great work. Always good advice. Thank you so much. I love that avatar, man. Star Wars and Family Guy, 2 things. Lewis, I exercise, but man, I love to eat and enjoy food. What to do? LOL, of course. Yes. Always remember that your body is adapting to regain homeostasis or homeostasis, depending on where you put the emphasis on the right syllable, right? And so whenever you are attempting any sort of weight loss or weight management approaches, you're going to have an equal and opposite reaction in the opposite direction. There's no such thing as long sustained continuous weight loss. There's always going to be the need to make adjustments and adaptations to things, because whenever you're putting yourself in a caloric deficit, which is when you start losing weight, your body sees that as a threat to its survival. It's like, all right, I've got to make some changes to make sure you get back into calorie balance so you can, survive. So it increases hormones or your appetites. It increases cravings. It increases the palatability of foods, right? It does all this as a way to try and balance you back out. So there's some things you can do here, Lewis, but for the most part, recognizing it. Calorie hacking is one of the things that I've recommended. Check out calorie hacking in the RDP YouTube channel. I just did a podcast on it not too long ago. If you're watching this on a later date than the live, then there's a link down below to calorie hacking. Basically, it uses homeostasis rather than goes against it, which almost every diet and exercise program does when it comes to weight loss. And yes, of course, you're supposed to eat food. You're supposed to enjoy food. A healthy diet means you enjoy food more, not less. It's supposed to satisfy your appetites as much as possible. So yes, exercise, and yes, enjoy food as much as possible. Healthier food is more enjoyable. And on the last point I'll make on that one is don't get stuck in the cardio trap, as I call it, where you eat a lot, so you exercise more, which increases your appetite. So you eat more, which means you have to exercise more. And it's just this exhaustive cycle, because the more you eat, the more you exercise, the more you exercise, the more you eat, and so on. Bring them both on down. And that's why I always recommend never, or I shouldn't say never, but I discourage people from exercising purely for the sake of burning calories. Like, I don't care how many calories I burn. I really don't. And again, that's luck. That's just, I'm lucky. I don't have to worry about that sort of thing. But exercise and be physically active for the sake of that thing. Like, I would go for a bike ride for going for a bike ride, right? Once you start doing exercise for the sake of, I got to burn this stuff off, that's getting into that cardio trap. So be active for the sake of the activity. Eat for the sake of the foods that you have. All right, next question. Santi, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Which do you think is an underrated muscle that deserves more attention? Awesome. Thank you very much for the support. Very good question. Lots of times I would say it's anything on the backside. The lats in particular, your traps, that stuff is usually, your traps I guess is pretty big. And when I say traps, I don't mean just the upper traps. A lot of people, they think traps, they think shrugs, the muscles on the top of the shoulders, but your traps are a huge muscle group that spans like a fan down almost to the middle of your back, because you got your upper traps, your middle traps, and of course your lower traps, and your rhomboids are also associated with that as well. They control your shoulder blades, and that scapular control and stability plays a paramount influence in every upper body exercise you will ever do. So if you're not engaging and using your traps properly, you're compromising the safety and effectiveness of everything from the waist up. So I would say make the trap training and stability and focus a priority in your workouts for sure. All right, let's see what other questions we got. Caius Scipio, I hope, I cannot pronounce it. I am sorry. I am very bad with names. Of course, with a name like Schifferly, you would think I'd be able to pronounce almost anything. Thoughts on tracking body weight, body fat, and lean mass, pros and cons, needed or not? Awesome question. Super, super awesome. It depends kind of on your personality. Some people are trackers. Some people are very good with numerics and metrics, and they love the spreadsheets, and they love tracking data and getting like the compiled numbers and everything like that. If that's kind of, you're a numbers geek, then definitely go that route. Okay, to put into perspective, my boss, right? We were at a work retreat this past weekend, and he's a mountain biker like I am. He's an insanely good mountain biker, and he's a numbers geek. In fact, to the point where he had this little device on his shock for his mountain bike, and I was like, oh, what's that little gizmo you got on there? This is tracking my suspension performance, and then I compile the data afterwards to see if I have the right settings. And I'm like, I just get on and go boingy, boingy, boingy. Yep, feels good to me, kind of thing. He's a numbers guy. If you gave me that data, I couldn't care less. Like if you gave me a scan, DEXA scan, like this is your body fat, this is how much muscle you have, this is everything, I'd be like, whatever. Like throw the spreadsheets in the shredder. Like I don't care. I can't make heads or tails of those numbers because I always know there's more behind the numbers too. Like I increased my reps 10, or I got 10 more reps on pull-ups. Okay. But how was your form? How was your range of motion? How's your speed? How's your breathing? How's your body position? A lot of other things, like what's behind the numbers kind of. So if you're a numbers guy, go with the numbers, track things, go with, it doesn't matter really what you're using either. You can use body fat scales that you find on like eBay or Amazon and stuff like that. And people are like, they're not accurate. They don't need to be accurate. You're looking for trends, not the actual numbers. That's a good way to know, okay, this is how much I weigh. This is roughly how much percentage of me is body fat. Therefore, you can calculate how much percentage you is muscle as well. And if you see the numbers trending in a certain direction, there you go. Pros, it's good to track it if you like to track. Cons, again, keep in mind that small little changes on a fast basis may not mean very much. I think Coach Sommer talked about how he's like, I don't measure anybody's muscle mass any more than once a year, because it doesn't change fast enough to notice a difference any more frequently than that. Maybe when you're young and you're just getting started biannually, but when people are like, oh, I've lost 3 pounds last week, it's like, that doesn't mean jack squat, as far as your muscle mass and stuff. You can't physically build or lose muscle that quickly, especially in natural conditions. So just be aware of that sort of thing. And you could be like me too. It's like, I go with more of a feeling approach to things. Like, I'll know if I'm getting stronger. Like I'll know, I put on a bike jersey and I'm like, oh, that's getting a little tighter in the back. My lats must be getting bigger. Why? Because the jersey's a bit smaller. It feels tighter. Like it's not a whole lot of guesswork there, right? Oh, belt's a little bit tighter. That's good or bad or whatever kind of thing. So that's the stuff I prefer to go with, but go with what you're naturally inclined to. We're going on luck. Some people are like you are very lucky to be good at numbers. If you're lucky to be good at numbers, use numbers. If you're like me and you completely suck at numbers, like I have trouble reading a calendar, then that's probably not the way that you want to go. Sam, what advice do you have for an ex-athlete with many injuries, wants to exercise, improve overall health? Oh boy, I can feel this one. I don't have a whole lot of injuries. Again, I'm lucky that I don't have a lot of injuries. I've got something with my foot, and I've got a kind of a bit of a quirky shoulder that pops up once in a while. But other than that, I'm pretty much impervious to pain, right? Especially in my 40s here. So I would say get to someone who can assess your injuries and really give you some good advice on what you can do to fix any sort of aches and pains you have. Too many, especially athletes, are like, oh, I got this bum knee, nothing I could do about it. I'm just going to live with it kind of thing. Fix pain. Pain will always hold you back. There is no good side to pain. It does not make you tough. It does not make you resilient. It makes you weaker. So fix what you can. And then for the things that you can't fix, like, okay, you've got like no meniscus in your knee, for example. There's nothing we could do about it. Okay. Then ask them for the advice of, so what can I do? And as always, overcoming isometrics. I think that's probably some of the best exercise you could possibly do when you have injuries, because you cannot overload your system with an external load or a load against gravity. So I would start with the overcoming isometrics, get it checked out for a full diagnostics on your biggest ones, see what you can fix and fix it as fast as possible. And the stuff you can't fix, find some sort of a suitable way to go about addressing that. All right, Simon, what's your typical lunch meal? Food. I like food. Food's really good. I was all on the packaging peanuts thing for a while, but that didn't settle too well for me. No, I joke, of course. Of course, I follow my 3 Ps: plant, protein, and portion. So I make sure I'm eating some protein. It's usually something of a meated variety. Plant is usually vegetables, and I'm eating enough. Lunch for me, the thing is, I don't really have too much of a 3-square meal. I've always been more of a grazer. I always joke I'm on the Hobbit diet. Like I'm on first breakfast, second breakfast, third breakfast. By the time noon rolls around, I've eaten 4 times kind of thing. And usually it's leftovers from the night before, which is usually a meat or a vegetable of some kind. And sandwiches. I'm a huge fan of sandwiches. Love sandwiches. Today I went out and I had a poke bowl. I decided to treat myself. I'm a huge fan of poke bowls. We've got a poke bowl restaurant right across the gym from where I work. Massive nutritional quality, super, super tasty as well. So it depends, but like I said, the 3 Ps, that's for all meals. It's what I base things off. It's plant, protein, and portion. All right, Alex, newcomer here. Is your opinion, what is the best functional core workouts? Move, move whatever way you like. Your core is involved in almost everything. So be aware of how you're using your core in anything that you're doing, from running, hiking, skiing, biking, climbing, whatever. But I would say the things that are turning on your muscles and getting you to learn how to use your abs are going to be the best. So that's going to be abdominal, overcoming isometric crunch. That's the one where you're standing towards something like gymnastic rings, a suspension trainer, or even just a countertop. And you're kind of crunching your abs downwards while pressing your hands down into the countertop or the rings. Because a lot of times, like, the core is extremely smart, and most people will use it in a very effective way with any kind of activity they do, provided they know how to engage it. And most people don't. So as a result, almost nothing they do works. And no ab training, no core exercise, nothing is very practical or going to work very well. But that's the thing with muscle activation. The second you get better at improving your muscle activation, everything works a hell of a lot better. So I would do overcoming isometrics. Cat-cow is also very effective for that. If you didn't quite understand what I meant by pushing down and stuff like that, just get in the cat-cow and squeeze the floor together on that line. Planks. And the 6th level in the grind style calisthenics core training, which is the saw plank with the knee tuck, where you have your feet suspended in a suspension trainer and you push yourself back, kind of like a stretch out, super intense for your abs. And then you pull your feet in and your knees are tucked to your chest while you're lifting up your hips. Hits everything. Stability, mobility, strength, control, involves the lower body, the upper body. Very, very practical. I would say that would be my most functional go-to exercise But again, that's level 6 in grind style calisthenics of the 6 levels that we have. So there's 4 or 5 below that one. So build up to it. All right. Hey, I get this a lot. Michael, come on, 42, I'll be 50 in 6 days. Hey, happy birthday, Michael. Congratulations, making it to 50. Well done, man. You don't look a day over 30 yourself. All right. Good question here. Is a ripped abdomen a strong one? Not necessarily. It could just be an indicator of low body fat. My core, my abs have gotten way stronger than they were 5 years ago. Way stronger by leaps and bounds. They don't look any different. And again, this is one of the things that I've been addressing in the past several episodes is our fitness culture has kind of given this subliminal message that aesthetics and function are closely related, that if you can do something, you should look a certain way. But that's not at all the case. People are like, oh, if you do, deadlifts, you'll get big and jacked. No, there's a lot of scrawny ass deadlifters out there. Oh, if you do running, you'll shed fat like crazy. No, there's a lot of runners out there with a beer gut. It's not nearly as correlated as we think it is. So you could be strong as hell and have no abdominal tone whatsoever. You don't even have a single ab. It's like a beer keg, strong as hell. Or you could be pretty ripped and barely hold a plank for 30 seconds. So it's not necessarily directly related. It's a correlation, not a causation sort of thing. Awesome. All right. Adam JJ, is whey protein powder that necessary? No, it's food. It's processed food. It's no different than processed like sugar and processed fat and stuff. It's a processed food. Now, is it bad? No. If you could tolerate, dairy, some people I know they have digestive issues with it and stuff. So listen to your gut and stuff. But I mean, when you eat something, your body treats food like dismantling a Lego set. Your body doesn't use food, it uses nutrients. So by the time you digest whey protein and your body's like, hey, cool, lysine, all right, I could use this. It's looking at that lysine and it's like, I don't know if this came from a steak or whey protein or a salmon or tofu or whatever. Leucine is leucine. I'm just going to put this over here where I can use it. So we often think that food matters, but food is not what your body uses. It's nutrients. So whey protein, sure, it's got nutrients to it, but I wouldn't say it's any better or worse than food. And my actual honest opinion is you just get more from food, not from just a nutritional standpoint, but it tastes better. It satisfies the hunger better. It has a better palatability. Now, you may be someone who's like, dude, I love this protein powder that's like Dutch chocolate with banana in it or something. It's my favorite. Great, wonderful. But if you're choking down whey protein, you're like, oh, God, this stuff is gross. I hate this stuff. Dude, stop doing that and go make an omelet. Get a tuna sandwich or something like that. Once you break it down, it's all the same sort of thing. So no, it's not necessary, but hey, knock yourself out if you like it. All right. Hello from Turkey. All right. How can I learn planche? I'm the wrong guy to be asking that one. I can't planche. I don't planche. I don't practice it. I would check out Cowling Movement or Gold Medal Bodies for that one. And that's just me being honest. Like, I'm a big believer that if you can't do something or you don't really have an interest in learning something, you don't have much of a validity in teaching it. And things like that, it's just no interest for me. So I'm not the guy to be asking for sure, but I would start on elbow levers. If start on the elbow lever, that's probably a good place to begin. And of course, tuck plank. Oh, my buddy, Jake Gay over at JG Calisthenics. He's got some good tutorials on his planche journey too. You may find some inspiration from there as well. Oh man, Kaylee from China. Kaylee, so good to see you. Oh my gosh, you're always on the comments. Appreciate your support so much here on the Red Delta Project. Great, wonderful. I didn't realize you're in China. That's fantastic. I've been to Hong Kong, but I've never been to the mainland China. So it's curious to know exactly where you are, but that's pretty cool. Ron B, thoughts on routinely tightening your core throughout the day? For example, driving your car is effective in any way? Absolutely. I'm a very big fan of habitually using muscle tension because it's practice. You're practicing engaging your muscles. And the reason why we lose that ability to engage muscles is because we're not using them. If your brain doesn't engage it enough, it literally erodes the neural connection, and eventually you just don't have it anymore. And your brain literally forgets the muscle is there. So definitely good idea. Yeah, tightening things up, contracting a little bit, it's good for you. It's definitely a beneficial thing. I do it all the time, make habits of it, especially if I'm kind of working on a new muscle group I'm trying to engage more, like those traps and the lats and stuff. It's good. It carries over very well to your workouts. All right, a little over time here. Last question. Lisa, can a 63-year-old woman reinvent herself? Good diet and exercise. We're always reinventing ourselves. Never forget that the body is always changing. You are going to be a very different woman in 10 years from now, no matter what you do. Whether or not you're going proactively with your habits or reactively, and you're just letting life take you wherever it goes, you're going to be reinvented in time anyway. So when you're using diet and exercise habits in a proactive way, what you're doing is you're saying, I know this ship is going somewhere. Now I'm going to steer it in the direction that I purposely want to go in. So absolutely, especially if you haven't really done much of this sort of thing in the past. I've seen people in their 80s be like, I used to be a couch potato and I used to eat lots of junk food. And a year later, you barely recognize them. They're like, holy smokes. And they're like, yeah, now I'm running Spartan races and I'm eating much healthier and stuff. So there's always the potential for change. There's always the potential to surprise yourself with just how much you can accomplish within a fairly short period of time. So I'd say absolutely go for it. No one is ever too old to start improving and go forward. Oh, what the hell? One more. I have so much fun doing this with you folks. I love talking to you. Eddie Bauer. Eddie, it's so good to talk to you. Again, thank you so much for all of your support. What's your thoughts on handstand push-ups? I'm assuming that's handstand push-ups. They abbreviate HSPUS. Yeah, I think handstand push-ups, they're like pull-ups in many regards for a lot of people. They're kind of the goal for a lot of people to hit. But I don't think enough people do the due diligence to build up to them in a safe and progressive manner, like jackknife push-ups, where your A-frame sort of thing, or feet up on the floor. Lots of people just struggling with 1 or 2 repetitions. Not terribly wrong with that, but I think it's out of the reach for practical application for the majority of people. Instead, more people would be better off with easier variants, either isometric style push-ups or shorter range push-ups. Put like a yoga block under your head so that you're going at shorter range. Don't treat it as this huge extreme move where you're trying to get your first rep or trying to get like 1 or 2 reps. We want some volume with this. And again, we want to practice using our arms in that motion. So the jackknives, feet elevated jackknife push-ups, that sort of thing. Make those your dietary staple. Handstand push-ups will come in time. And they're a great shoulder builder. They're also really good for the upper traps. Very, very effective for sure. Having too much fun here. Yusuf. Love that name. Yusuf Evans. Total Gym help with calisthenic strength. Anything will help with calisthenic strength if it challenges your strength. Strength does not discriminate. I know in the past I've said there's specificity to strength. Like if you develop strength in one area, that doesn't necessarily mean you're supremely strong in another area sort of thing. But there's always going to be some degree of carryover. So if you're using the Total Gym and you're doing like push exercises, the bench press style exercise on the Total Gym, that's going to have some carryover to your push-ups, man. Absolutely. And vice versa. Always remember, it's not the exercises that are important. It's the movements. So the movements, human movement is largely the same across all methods and technology and equipment. So, horizontal press is a horizontal press. It's always going to carry over, whether it's a barbell, dumbbells, kettlebells, Total Gym, bands, calisthenics, underwater yoga, whatever the hell you're doing. If you're developing strength in a certain movement pattern, you'll be stronger in the same movement pattern with a different method. Absolutely. Can I get some information about one-arm pull-ups, one-arm push-ups? What do these exercises well? Those, again, same with handstands. Like those are exercises that are, a lot of people, they jump into them too fast. They rush into them too quickly. I would say for the ability to progress to those, you want to become extremely proficient in close hand work. You notice that I almost never do anything that's wider than shoulder width. So get really comfortable with things really close in with two-handed variations, close pull-ups, close push-ups. You should feel almost no strain at all in the joints when you're doing those sorts of things. Get able to do at least 20 pull-ups close-handed, at least 40 push-ups close-handed, and then progressing with the archer style variants. Those archers are harder than people give them credit for, as they should be. So that's where I would go. And then the one arm stuff should just come right on along. All right, folks. Once again, I'm over time here. It's been 40 minutes of absolute fun for me. I hope that I was able to help you out. And once again, realize your lucky breaks in life, both in fitness and otherwise. Exploit what you have the advantages of, because we all have it. And if you recognize it and you can appreciate these sorts of things, you'll make a lot faster and easier progress along the way, and recognize the shortcomings and the raw deals you've been dealt in life. We all have those as well. And they're not something of be like, oh, woe is me, and I can't get any results because, you know, I wasn't born with a dumbbell in my hand or whatever like that. But just recognize that you're on a different playing field from everyone else that was in that sort of situation. So, all right, folks, see you next week, next Wednesday night, same general time, same station. And let me know if you have further thoughts and questions down below in the comments as well. Take care, be fit, and live free.